All right, hello everybody. So today we're going to start modeling and putting things into our own gallery design space, and have it all set up and staged and ready for putting it into the Unreal Engine. Now, just like with After Effects or any other program that has assets that are referenced, we need to make sure that everything is in the right spot and it stays there. So we're going to go into our documents and actually create a folder and call it whatever you want, but that's the folder you're going to use, and you can't change the name of it. All of the file paths and everything like that need to stay the same, so you do need to put some thought before we actually start designing into organizing things. Now, it's not as much of a problem until you start exporting for Unreal Engine. So if you've already started your design, you can still move it all into a folder. It's not a big deal, just like previous projects. But I'm going to go ahead with my portfolio game and start off with a gallery space. And I'm just going to draw a very simple one. You might want to do windows and stuff like that, or skylights. But these are some of the sculptures I'm going to put in, and then I'm also going to be putting in some paintings as well. So I'm going to actually start off with creating the assets that I'm going to use, and I'm going to put them all on different layers because, again, you want a different layer for every object you're going to have different materials on. So I'm going to click on these and create new layers, call it okay, and then I'm going to just put each one of these on here. So right click and then move objects to this layer, click on this one, right click, and so on. And you can title them the title of the actual piece if you've titled your work, and that might make it a little bit easier for you to be able to see which object is on which layer without having to use select functions. So then I'm going to color code everything and go back to shaded here. Okay, so I can see that still haven't moved that one. Okay. Probably still have the previous one selected. So I'm just checking the colors, making sure they're all different. So I know that I've got them on their proper layers. And then I'm going to turn those layers off. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let me turn them back on. I realized I've got this set up, I think, with my units a little funky. So pay no attention to this. Your units should be fine. I'm changing mine just back to inches. Yours should already be in inches, so it scales everything back down. Okay. Now I'm going to turn all these off and go to a top view. And this is actually, it doesn't matter. Our top view is fine. So this is where I'm actually going to draw the shapes of my my paintings. So a lot of my paintings are kind of difficult to use because they're on shaped canvases, but the ones that are a little older, I think, are probably what I'm going to use just to be easier on myself. So I'll use like these ones here. Apotheosis is 58 by 76. That's a good one to start with. So then I'm going to draw a rectangle. 76, enter. 58, enter. Okay. So that's going to be the size of my painting. And then I'm going to extrude this in perspective up 2 inches. So that's the thickness of my canvas. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and create a new layer here. Actually, let me, oops. Okay, click on this and move it to the layer. Change my color here. Something I can recognize. Okay, and then I'm going to do a quick zoom extents just to make sure my zoom is oriented properly. All right, now we are ready to make a material. So create a material, plus custom. And then this custom material, I'm not going to put a bump map on it just because I'll have to do that later again. It doesn't copy over that well, but I'm going to put a color map on it. So my color map, if I click on right there, brings up this. I can go to my pictures. I can go to Lightroom, local, pictures. This is where I keep all my stuff. And I can go to my portfolio folder and scroll down. Okay, and there it is. So I'm going to open that. All right, and then I'm going to explode this, and that way I've got just this one surface here. And then I'm going to apply this material to this object. So if I click and drag it onto here, right click and go to rendered, I can see I have my painting. Now, if you wanted to be tricky about it too, you could also even just double assign the bump map as the same image, and that'll give it a little bit more texture. When you get up close to it, not as much as like creating the bump map would in Photoshop, but it works pretty good with my paintings because they're kind of hard edged. So this is now my first painting. Of course, I've got my other objects too. So I'm going to basically just be making a bunch of these paintings like this, and I'm keeping it exploded. You can add like a white material to the sides here so you can control the gloss. So if I add like a paint color, and then I'm going to make that paint color white, and I'm going to make it really matte instead of glossy. And then I'm going to apply it to the sides. And it would have probably been easier if I would have applied this to the sides, to the whole thing beforehand, so I don't have to click on so many things and then just change the top one. Okay. So that's painting number one. And it's fine that it's exploded, leave it exploded. When we bring things into the Unreal Engine later on, it needs to be exploded. You can group it together if you feel like you're having a problem moving it around, but then I usually like to ungroup and then explode everything again before bringing it into Unreal Engine. So it just depends on how you want to group it. All right, so I'm going to keep doing that, and then I'll come back once I've got a bunch of paintings done, and I'll apply materials to the sculptures, and then we can bring them all into the gallery. Actually, I'm just going to use this file as my gallery file. So, but I'm going to just keep working on my own for a little while here. All right, so I've got all of my objects here, 3 paintings, that's all I'm going to do for right now, and then I've got my 4 sculptures. So I want to create pedestals for the sculptures, and then I want to arrange things a little bit and change my units, and then build a gallery. I'm going to just do a quick rectangular shape. So let's go ahead and go to settings and model. Inches is fine. Then let's go ahead and go over to grid, and I'm going to change my grid count to 200, and then I'm going to change my minor grid lines from every 1 inch to every 12 inches, and then my major grid lines from every 5 to 6, so that'll be 6 feet. And then when I go to shaded here, we should have more grid. So that's good for us doing something architectural here. So I'm going to actually just group these so that they're easy to move into separate individual groups. So this one's not grouped. Okay, now it's grouped. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these up. So flip them with ortho on. Makes it easier to make sure we're moving in the right direction. Okay. And then I'm just going to move these back in space. Or not back in space, sorry. So they're kind of next to each other. And then I'm going to actually go to my layers here and hide them all. Should basically have nothing left. I have a curve here, delete it. Okay, so now I can create a new layer. And this layer I'm going to call Gallery. And I'm going to create another one called Plan. Plan would be the whole plot of the area. So I'm going to create a ground plane, gallery walls, a floor inside the gallery, and then a couple of windows just to shine some light in. So now I'll go to a top view, and I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I'm just going to start right about there and draw it out. And you want it to be kind of close to your 0 point here because it'll make it easier when you transfer it to Unreal Engine. You'll have your gallery kind of in the right vicinity, basically. So I'm going to make this gallery 30 feet by 15 feet. Okay, and then let me see my sizes here. Yeah, that should be a good like single room gallery. It's nothing fancy. Switch out of this into perspective, extrude the curve up, and I'm going to go up 14 feet, enter. And then I'm actually going to create a shell of this so that it's got walls on all sides. But first I want to actually create my floor. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle a little bit bigger than the size of my room. And if you wanted to do something more innovative here, you can, but do something kind of basic. So now I'm going to do a shell, enter, select the side to get rid of, it's that one, and my thickness, I'm going to do 10, enter, enter. Okay. So this is kind of a small-ish room. Might want to do it a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to scale it up a little bit. So I'm going to click on it and go scale, enter, find a base point. Where am I going to grab it by? I'll grab it right here, and I'm going to do a scale factor of 2, enter. So it'll blow it up twice the size. Okay. And then I want to do a maybe a window on the ceiling or something like that. So I'm going to draw a line across the midpoint to the midpoint. Make sure your snaps are on over here. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to do a center rectangle, which is a little different because I've got a midpoint right here. So if I click there, now when I draw my rectangle out, it comes out this way. And I can make it whatever size I want. Make it 10 foot. No, make it 30 foot. 30 feet by 15 feet. And then I can extrude this rectangle down through my object. I'll click on it move it up so it's overlapping, and do a Boolean difference. Click on this, click on that, enter. So now I've got an area where the sky is going to come in and light up this room. And you can do a window frame and glass here. There's a tutorial video on that. I'm going to just do a quick piece of glass. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, rectangle from this point here to that point there, so it's nice and tight. We want all our geometry to be butting up against each other, but not overlapping. Extrude curve, and I'm going to do 0.5 for like ½ inch. I know that's kind of thick. And then deletes the curve that I used, and then I'm going to move this down -7. So that's going to be pane of glass. You can actually even make that like a light, like almost like a James Turrell light, by adding illumination to the glass. So if I go to my materials here, I'm going to add a new material, glass. And then I'm going to leave it white, very clear, and I'm going to title it Gallery, GW Glass for Gallery Window Glass, so I know which one it is. Okay, and then if I go to Rendered here, well, I made the object glass. Okay, so let's go back and just add a material for, add a custom material for the rest of the gallery so I can change it. Let's see. Plaster, ancient white plaster, sure. Apply that to the gallery space, okay. So now we've got white walls in here. So this is kind of how the room feels. You can see the light and stuff hitting it. And you'll want to close this back door area. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle in a front view. Or a right view, sorry. There we go. From this point here. And the reason why you switch to the right view is so that the rectangle goes the right direction. Okay, click on the rectangle, curve, back to perspective, extrude this inward, and I'll do 10 inches. You can even do like a window over here or some kind of interesting thing here. I might just do another door. So I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint, in a right view, upward, and I'm going to do an 8-foot line. Click, find that endpoint, come over here, 2'6". I'm going to do a 5-foot opening, so half that way. 2'6", half that way. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle from here, touch this end, and then it drags down if you've got your Smart Track turned on. Select my objects left to right, go back to perspective, extrude, inward, 24 inches just to make sure that it's bigger. Delete the curve, click on the object, which is this little extrusion, and move it so it overlaps. Let's switch to shaded so you can see better. And then Boolean difference it to remove out. Keep that, remove that. Did not work right. So click on just that one. Make sure that you don't accidentally click on a surface like I did that shouldn't be there anyway. So now just this object. Okay, Boolean difference. Click on this, enter, click on this, enter. And then I accidentally extruded that curve in the middle, so I can just delete that. Alright, great. So now what I want to do is I want to move this ground plane up a bit. just so there's not so much of a step up into the room. Right about like that. And that way the floor is still overlapping in here. So if I copy and paste this and then remove it, it should still work. So Command X to cut it, or Control X, Control V to paste it back in place. Now I've got a copy on my clipboard. I can Boolean difference. I want to keep this, enter, and I want to remove this, enter. So that creates a depression inside of there. You can still see I've got my original curves in there. We'll delete all the curves later, but that depression is going to give us an area for the floor in here. So I can make this object have a different floor, and you kind of step in off of the pad. So it's kind of almost like a foundation architecturally. All right, so now I want to make this floor something different. I'm going to hide my wall here. This is why it's on a different layer, so I can just hide it and get it out of the way. And then I can work inside of here. Got extra curves. Draw a rectangle. There to there. In perspective, I'm still on a top view, so that's fine. And I'm going to extrude this curve up 0.5. And that just gives me another object I can make a floor out of. And then I actually want to move this flooring a little bit back in space. No, never mind. I'm just going to leave it and see how it looks. Might have to subtract out the yeah, let's do that. Subtract out this wall, because this wall is going to be overlapping. You can always tell when things are overlapping because there's not a straight line here. So again, I can Command X to copy that, Command V to paste it, or Control V, and then Boolean difference. And I want to keep this, enter, and I want to remove this, enter. And if you have everything lined up right, it should just cut out around the door threshold perfectly. So then I can Command V again to paste it back in place, and now I've got a wall that doesn't have any overlapping geometry. You can see that nice straight line there, and then I've got my floor here, which now I'm going to make a new material for. So this material is going to be gallery floor. And you don't want to use multiple word descriptions for your materials. Sorry if you've already done that. If you have, use an underscore. It just makes communicating between software easier. Okay, so we got a gallery window up here. Let's make a new layer for that. Okay. Change the color. I'll do like a blue or something. And then move object to this layer. Okay, gallery floor, change the color here. Do a pink. And then click on this. Move object to this layer. Okay. And then gallery, make sure that's on the right one. So move object to this layer. And then plan, which is going to be this one. Move object to this layer. So again, we want layers for everything, and that's super crucial because we're going to explode everything, and they'll be in a million pieces in the program. But when we bring them into the Unreal Engine, you'll see that it'll be all grouped together, and you can play with the materials on them a lot easier. Okay, so now we've got the white cube, and I can apply materials to the floor. Let's go to materials here. Add a material, import from library, go to I think I'm going to do a wood floor, maybe a parquet wood floor like the Louvre has. Okay, so Assign to selected object, right click, assign to objects. Okay, now if I look at it in rendered, okay, you can see a parquet floor inside there. All right. Next step, I'm going to make this ancient white plaster too. And delete this curve. And then, do we have another curve? Yes. You can kind of spot them after you get used to it a bit. Got another one up here. Okay, so now next step is, so let's go ahead and put the artwork in. All right, I switched to a top view. So now I just want to draw a rectangle from this point here to this point here. Now that is the rectangle I'm going to use to move up and down in space to line up my art on the walls. Move it down, down, down. Hide this back wall. And I want to move it to the ground. So just move, end point, then go up 60 inches. Okay. So that's our center line. Okay, cool. So now let's bring back our other work and hide the gallery. So let's hide. Let me create a new layer for this and call it curve. Move object to the layer. Okay, and then I can hide all the rest of these. And I've got a place where I can center things. So I'm going to bring first back my paintings. And then switch it to shaded. Actually, wait, first rendered, make sure I got it the right way. Okay, rendered, they're all facing that way, shaded. All right, I'm going to put this big one, which they're grouped together so they all hold together. Move, enter, grab it at that midpoint, and then I'm just going to move it to the midpoint here. Okay. Now, this painting is 8 feet wide, so it means it's off basically by 4 feet, just doing the math. So I'm going to do negative 48, enter, and that should center it on that wall. Okay. Next, I'm going to do this one. So this one I want to turn all the way around. And then move again from the midpoint here. And I'm going to put on the near here. So near basically means I can grab it wherever I want on the line. So near, when it says near, I can click. Okay. And then this one I'm going to put on the other wall. Move, enter, midpoint to near. All right, and then the next thing I want to actually do is I want to create pedestals for my sculpture. So I'm going to put 4 pedestals in the middle and put the 4 sculptures on it. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I'm just going to use this point as a reference here. And I'm going to make them 18 by 18. And I'm going to extrude them up 48 inches, or how high do I want them? Maybe 50 inches. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this down from my midpoint to here. And then I'm going to move it down, I don't know, another 30 inches, negative 30. Let's see if I'm right. Let me turn back on the gallery floor. No. So I'm going to go ahead and snap them to the gallery floor. They might be at the right height. No, not really. Okay, move. And then click on one of these corners here, and I'm going to put it right on the top of that endpoint on the thickness there. It's easier to get things oriented and then make copies of them. So that's what I'm doing. So now I've got it oriented. I can just do that. Then go to a top view here. See how it looks layout wise. I'm going to mirror this over. Use my midpoint. And then I'll do it again. Okay. So those are the pedestals I'm going to put things on. All right, let's turn on our sculpture. And they should be hiding somewhere. Let's see. Select objects on layers. There they are in the floor. Okay. Now I just want to place these on the pedestal. So I'm going to move. And I want to grab it on one of the points on the bottom. And then I'm just going to move it to a point on the pedestal. And I'm going to just do that with each of them. Because you can arrange them on the pedestal pretty easily afterwards. So that's just making sure they're snapped at the same level and they're going to be sitting right on it. Okay. Top view here. And let's zoom in. Select our object. And we're going to place it using these two vectors right on as close to center as I can get. All right, so let's go back to perspective here. Let's see if we've got them rotated the direction we want them to be. Okay. So then let's turn on our gallery layers. And then remove all of our curves. So edit, select objects, curves, delete. All right, so now I just want to do a little bit of a test render just to see how it looks. And then I'm going to do a render preview just to see how the lighting is. All right, so I did a little render preview and it came out too dark, and then I changed my render properties and it came out much better. I put on a skylight and the sun, and that really cleared things up. If you go to sun settings, you can also change the time of day as well. So if you want the sun coming in from a specific angle, you can do that. I'm doing a really small, low quality one here just to kind of make it happen quickly. And I can see how the lighting is looking. And that means that I can come back in a little bit more and tweak this lighting some. And I also want to maybe make a little wider angle view. So I'm going to go back up here again and do the same thing I did in the last gallery demo. And I'm going to go to set camera. And I'm going to do adjust lens length. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit just to try to bring in some of the side paintings a little bit more. And I'll do another quick render just to see how that looks. So didn't render quite right. So what I'm going to do now is I want to actually come in here and go to view, Set view, named views. Brings up the named views panel over here, which is closed. And I'm going to add a named view and call it perspective's fine for me. Okay. So now I'm going to zoom. Let's try it one more time. Rendering. All right, yeah, that's looking better. Okay, so now I'm going to add a couple of lights around the paintings just to make them stand out more, and we should be ready to do a final render. And I'm just rendering this so I can see what it looks like. You could probably stop right here and start working with the Unreal Engine because the lighting is going to be different. You're going to have to redo the lighting. Okay, so that's it for this basically staging the gallery thing. And the next step, what I want to do is I'm going to export all this and bring it into the Unreal Engine.